All right, we're actually live. I don't know what's going on with technology all over everywhere today. We've been live for 3 minutes. We're actually just live now. Welcome. It's Modern Relics Podcast. I'm Angel. He's Lucky. We're back here for you. What's going on, bro?
Oh man, so many things.
Yeah.
So many things. I had a I had an appointment today, which is odd for Tuesdays, but every once in a while I'll throw one in. And so I did that. Did a Mothman girl pinup.
Yeah.
It was fun. Ended up talking politics more so with this client than I had in the past.
Mm-hmm.
We briefly kind of touched on it, but they're Seattle transplants, and so I'm always careful with those.
Yeah.
And it would seem as if they are that them as a unit, as a couple, are getting kind of red pilled, and I think that just naturally happens when you get out of those metropolitan areas.
Yeah.
You know, and the process is slower for some, and but once you start recognizing what like normalcy looks like, then all of a sudden you start getting a taste of it, and you're like, oh wait, this is actually normal. This is good. And then so yeah, but outside of that, I've had a good week. Like just worked and saw a few things as far as movies and shows.
Nice.
And then yeah, just kind of hung out with the family a lot, and the dog, since Cooper passed. Arthur's kind of lonely, so he's been extra attention seeking, and so we've been making sure we fill that void. But outside of that, I'm doing great. How are you?
Not too bad. Kind of back in the swing of things. My pop is down here visiting, which is always a pleasure.
That's rad.
Not sure what he's up to. He's out doing dad things. He's up to dad stuff. But we're having a good time. It's really nice to see him. I don't think he's been able to come down here in like 3 years now, maybe a little bit longer.
It's hard to have a bad time around your dad.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. Yeah. It's really true.
Your dad's a good man and a good time. So like I enjoy his company.
I was really hoping you guys' trips would intersect, and maybe they will one day in the future, but it's been a really good time. So just kind of hanging out, chopping it up, and then work is work, you know. Like I today, in fact, was kind of a later day at work and got one of those, I'm going to drop some stuff on you at 4:55 p.m. You know what I mean? It's awesome. We could have maybe dealt with this way sooner. So other than that, it's not been too bad, to be honest with you. So I think we're probably going to do some hard chilling through the weekend, maybe go see some car stuff, see some gun stuff, just do that kind of thing. And other than that, just prepping a little bit for today. We got quite a bit to cover today, and I've got lots of notes that I need to cover. So I'll be drinking water so I don't get dry mouth talking my ass off, but that's what we're here for. But other than that, all systems go.
We have a big list today, and I might have bombarded you with a bunch of different topics. One of the things I didn't even get to throw at you that I just thought would be fun, because I'm tired of all the crap that's coming out of the Olympics. Like we talked about how we don't care, right? But man,
I could care less about the Olympics. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But that silver placing shooter from where was he, Spain or something like that?
I don't know.
So
the guy that doesn't have all the accoutrement on, that pretty much came out with a t-shirt and yeah, and both eyes open because he knows actually what he's doing, and but apparently, from what I gather, is that the story is that he took up shooting in the process of his divorce, and just to fill his time. And just got it's an interesting way to exercise those emotions in a constructive way, you know?
Right. So but what no one seems to be talking about at all is who won gold. No one even knows. No one did. And I feel bad for the person who won gold, because this guy has stolen all of his thunder. It is wild. But I just thought, we're both into firearms, and so
and my favorite was
anything coming out of that. That's the only thing that I care about.
One of my favorite things, dude, surrounding all that is there's a content creator I'm sure you're familiar with called Colion Noir, and he's a big 2A advocate guy, and also a lawyer. And he had this big long post because I follow him on Instagram, and it was like, how come the U.S. didn't win gold? Like, he was indignant about it. Like, we're the most pro-gun country on the planet. Like, come on, guys. Like, what the fuck is he? And by the end of it, I was like, he's talking some sense. I don't understand why gold isn't being talked about. And to be fair with you, this is how much I don't care about the Olympics. We might have. I don't even, obviously not if he's bitching about it, but like, you know what I'm saying? It's just like, we could have, and I wouldn't have even known, but
same here.
That guy is like,
who won gold.
Oh, that guy's getting memed into everywhere too. He's going to be the next Talk to him. For sure.
Yeah. Maybe they'll do a podcast together.
Right. We'll have them on here. Be like, hey, man, what was it like stealing the show? So where do you want to start with all this madness? Because we had the top of my list is the vice president selection. That's been top of mind for this pod for a while.
I think that's a great way to go because it just dropped today. So I think kind of launch into that. I think would be a great work.
Let's do that. So we've been kibitzing, as it were, about who the Democrats would pick as a VP candidate to back up Kamala Harris when she was named up as the I quit my job. I guess, by the way, I'm endorsing Kamala Harris to be the next president. And we were trying to figure it out. We talked about how Gavin Newsom should distance himself, this and that. They turned to Tim Walz of Minnesota. And I have some notes about Tim Walz's accomplishments, if you'll indulge me.
I will, because I'm fascinated, because up until today, outside of just knowing that Minnesota had terrible leadership top to bottom, I wasn't really super familiar with this guy, and I think I'm not alone on that. I think a lot of the country wasn't either. So do fill us in.
He was trending on Google search results, like, who the fuck is this guy? So this is titled Tim Walz the Turncoat. Tim Walz was somebody that voted twice for George W. Bush. And it appears by the timeline of events from all the research that I was doing that at a George W. Bush rally, he took some students because he was a teacher, and one of the students was accosted by security because he had a John Kerry badge, like sticker on his wallet. And since then, he's completely gone the other way. That seems to be the line of demarcation. But spent a year teaching in China. Both of his children were conceived through IVF fertility treatments, which is why their daughter's name is Hope. And I think that plays into some of the policies that he's enforced packaged in with gender affirming care and all these other things. Inspired to join John Kerry's campaign after he took a group of students to a George Bush rally and security interrogated a student for a Kerry sticker on the wallet. Allowed Minneapolis to burn during the George Floyd aftermath.
He sure did do that, that's for sure.
Received praise from former President Barack Obama when the Minnesota Democratic Farmer Labor Party gained control of the governor's mansion, the state house, and the state senate. So he's not alone out there. Legalized recreational marijuana. Last year, Walz appointed a hemp shop owner to be the state's top cannabis regulator. The next day, cannabis entrepreneur Erin Dupree stepped down from the role after the Star Tribune reported that she had sold illegal products at her hemp shop and had federal tax liens and judgments against her. Minnesota's nonpartisan government watchdog, the Office of the Legislative Auditor, later found the governor's office missed some standard background check steps before appointment of Dupree. So just one or two. Signed a bill last May expanding voting rights for estimated 55,000 formerly incarcerated residents. Kind of an interesting move. Yeah. Decided to meet with the Ukrainian ambassador to the United States to sign a letter of understanding that creates an agricultural partnership between Minnesota State and a northern region in Ukraine called Chernihiv. Quote, once we drive the Russians out, we'll have some cooperation, Walz said. It's a really important showing of friendship and a real important showing of ties. Interesting. Signed an executive order protecting access to gender-affirming care. Quote, as states across the country move to ban access to gender-affirming care, we want the LGBTQ Minnesotans to know they will continue to be safe, protected, and welcome in Minnesota, end quote. Waltz received a 100% rating from Planned Parenthood in 2012, the ACLU in 2011, the American Immigration Lawyers Association in 2009 and 10, from the AFL-CIO in 2010, from the International Brotherhood of Teamsters in 2009 and 10, and from the National Organization for Women in 2007. He also received single-digit ratings from the National Taxpayers Union, Citizens Against Government Waste, Americans for Tax Reform, and FreedomWorks. The United States Chamber of Commerce gave him a 25% rating in 2010, and it's been looking down ever since, by the way. While in Congress, he was a strong supporter of gun rights and was endorsed by the NRA Political Victory Fund multiple times, receiving an A grade from the organization. But following the Parkland High School shooting in 2018, he denounces the NRA in a Star Tribune opinion piece, which I think is probably in his pocket by this late in the game, and announced that he would donate the equivalent of all the campaign contributions from the NRA PVF had given him, which is about $18,000, to the Intrepid Fallen Heroes Fund. As governor, Waltz expressed support for gun regulation and in 2023 signed into law a public safety bill that establishes universal background checks and red flag laws simultaneously in Minnesota. He supports LGBTQ rights, including federal anti-discrimination laws on the basis of sex orientation. In a 2009 speech, called for an end to the Don't Ask, Don't Tell policy. Voted in favor of Matthew Shepard and James Boyd Jr. Hate Crimes Prevention Act and the Sexual Orientation Employment Non-Discrimination Act. Received a 90% grade from the Human Rights Campaign, which is the nation's largest LGBT organization. Announced his support for the Respect for Marriage Act. As governor, Waltz has signed a number of bills that support the LGBTQ community. In 2023, signed a bill that banned the practice of conversion therapy and another that banned the practice of conversion therapy, and another bill that protected gender-affirming care in Minnesota. Supports abortion rights and has a 100% rating from Planned Parenthood. The National Right to Life Committee gave him a rating of 0. And in 2009, voted for the Lilly Ledbetter Fair Play Act. So somewhere in there, he went from moderate right to hard left, and has been
From moderate right to, if you were to throw all of the words into an AI generator to create an avatar that is exactly the anti-Lucky avatar, that's what you would get. So those are you could not put a resume in front of me that would be worse than that.
Which means Kamala Harris's pick is not to appeal to anybody moderate, the quiet riot, nobody. It is to appeal to the absolute hard edge fringe left she possibly can with this election.
Absolutely.
This is the
she's not reaching across any aisles.
She is shifting gears with the 2A ban promises. I wouldn't call it that. The gun restriction acts that she wants to probably turn into a 2A ban. All of the Roe v. Wade arguments, everything as far left as you could possibly go. She has reached to the farthest fringe and found that as a VP running mate. So that's the direction that they chose, was to go all the way in, it seems. That's a small picture of Tim Waltz, and I titled it The Turncoat because he was obviously a moderate right, NRA 100% rating right up until a couple of points, and then just decided, I'll start with managing John Kerry's campaign or being a high coordinator in it, all the way to becoming a 2-term governor, all the George Floyd burning, everything, just hard left and shift gears. That's the guy. So that's a small glimpse, everybody, into Tim Waltz, just by the way.
Yeah. The article that I looked up was an NPR article because I wanted to be somewhat fair about it, not just kind of pull from the Gateway Pundit or whatever.
Oh, BT dubs. Yeah, I got this from a mix between The Guardian, NPR, CBS, and Wiki. That's where all that came from.
And of course, it's I wouldn't say a glowing review, but man, do they skip over any negativity on it.
Right. Imagine.
Yeah. So, I couldn't possibly be more surprised, because I did not, of all of the picks, this was not one that I saw coming.
Me
it
either.
doesn't make it doesn't make sense on paper. Like, you picked a 70-something-year-old white guy to, you think that you're getting the super ultra progressive, leftist socialist communist, admitted. Uh, you think you're getting him to kind of appeal to the far left, to the extreme fringes, but in this avatar, in this body, that you think that, so you're, even though policy wise they'll probably all jump on board policy wise with the both of them. However, you're dealing with a group of people who almost primarily deal in identity politics.
Mm-hmm.
That's essentially their guiding light. So
And
now
with Kamala Harris,
got,
she can't pick which identity she wants to politic for, seemingly by the hour.
But the identity she can't get away from is that she was a cop.
Yep.
So you've got the race confused cop who's trying to play every side and offending every side, because the black people are like, she's not one of us. There's been multiple interviews that I've watched where they're like, yeah, just average, on the street people who are just like, nah.
Yeah.
It's kind of gross that she's saying that.
I think the fringe lefties are stoked.
White guy.
Yeah, I think the fringe lefties are stoked. I think everybody else is confused and not impressed at the same time.
Yeah. But he doesn't have name recognition. He doesn't have anything that I think outside of Minnesota is really going to push him. And you would have to win more than Minnesota, which, oddly enough, the last assassination attempt on Reagan, if you look at the map after that next election, Mondale lost every single state except for Minnesota. And so why the focus on Minnesota? But it just seems like an odd choice strategy wise. It doesn't feel like this is the gut punch to push him over, the finish line.
I don't think it's a good choice from a strategy perspective, because you're alienating everybody but the fringe. And they're not, in my opinion, they're not the political majority of your party when it comes to finance and influence. They may be an ideology, but that's it.
Peel off, Kennedy votes. You just lost Kennedy votes.
Yep.
All those middle of the road Democrats who were like, if she picks somebody a little bit moderate and Kennedy drops out, we can go in that direction. But she picked somebody far more extreme than she's ever been. And so now you've just pushed all of those independent or, blue dog Democrat Kennedy voters.
Maybe she thought she was
over to Trump.
Maybe she thought she was picking up moderates, and her office failed to do enough due diligence, like his office did, appointing the cannabis entrepreneur Aaron Dupree, who just lasted one day. You never know. Tomorrow could be a brand new day, man.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense to me, but
it's a weird
it is
pick.
What it is.
It's a weird pick. Yeah.
And I don't know what November is going to look like, but there's going to have to be some major shakeups, because this is too boring a VP pick for her. Like, JD Vance at least ruffled some feathers.
Yeah.
Whether or not I think he was the right pick, it doesn't matter. The guy definitely ruffled feathers.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that generates energy.
Mm-hmm.
This guy doesn't generate energy. Doesn't generate anything from anybody.
Here's where I'm going to argue with you. I'm okay with it being boring. I can't wait for November to get here. I want this rat race fear porn. I need a political prophylactic. I'm so sick of this, dude. Like, already, and it's August, but I'm okay if it just calms down and peters out. Obviously it won't. It's going to be inflammatory, and it'll be riotous content when we get debates and stage time and airtime. But, goddamn, dude. But it's a weird pick. It's a weird pick.
It is. Now, what about debates? Like, we've had a little bit of information on debates where Trump said, invited her to do one on Fox. She said no. What she wants is to do one over on one of her networks, but under the same parameters as what was going on with Joe Biden.
Mm-hmm.
and the rules are different. And the rules, I mean, it's a totally different ball of wax there. You don't get to just hop on what
Right.
you know.
They should
Do
have
you think we'll
Rogan
even
do the
see another
debate.
debate? Oh, I fully agree.
Here's what I think. Like, I really, really, really wanted a JD Vance Kamala Harris debate, assuming Joe Biden was still going to be the majority nominated president elect, fighting for second term. Now that those days are gone and we're not going to get treated to that, I still am looking forward to a VP debate, seeing the resume of somebody who is so far fringe left. And by my earlier prediction that I believe JD Vance is more Trump than Donald Trump as far as policies are concerned, I truly believe Trump by policy is a little bit more of a moderate, and the radicalization of Donald Trump is more due to his nature and bombastic nature and things like that. So I'm actually looking forward to a VP debate now with JD Vance and Tim Walz. I think would be absolutely exciting because of how far left he is. I think it would be just absolutely embarrassing for Kamala Harris to take a debate right now.
No, you're correct.
You know, she's not, and I mean this with as much respect as I can muster. I don't believe she was even qualified for the position she carries today. And if you look at her history and her record book of kind of failing upward and just surrounding herself with the right types of people and then kind of downplaying all the other stuff that, you know, like Tulsi Gabbard cooked her ass 4 years ago. So like all that stuff turned out to be true. I don't think she's prepared for a debate, and that's likely why I declined this invitation. Yeah. And I think they've got a lot of prep work to do, knowing that this is what we got. But I'm stoked if Tim Walz and JD Vance get in the ring because they're very polar opposite. And I don't consider JD Vance a moderate at all. So that would be my hot take. I want to see the VP debates more now maybe than I did before.
Let me throw a wrench in all of this. So a news story came up on my phone today, and it was an odd thing. And now it's just a rumor, but Trump is now saying that Joe Biden will try to, in quotation marks, take back the nomination at the DNC after it was stolen by Kamala. He goes, I hear there's a big movement to bring it back at Crooked Joe. So apparently, behind the scenes, there's still a movement that at the DNC, they're going to try to pull Joe back up on that stage again.
This is political suicide for the Democrats, if that's the case, isn't it?
I would imagine, but I mean, this is right off the Gateway Pundit, and they're quoting Trump. So I don't know what the hell is going on, but
what do you want to happen?
I don't know. At this point, popcorn.
Yeah.
You know, like it's such a clown show at this point.
Could you imagine that? Like, this is what I want. I want it to be on some major network, Fox, CNN, something like that. We're gearing up for a debate with Kamala Harris and fucking Donald Trump. And then all of a sudden, crawling out from underneath the apron with a steel chair. Oh my God, it's Joe Biden. Just clobbers Kamala Harris. Everyone on the couch throwing popcorn. Oh my God. The steel cage is coming down over the top of them. Yeah, Shawn Michaels is super kicking people on the sides. Bring it on.
Yeah.
Like, let's, pull.
At this point, that's kind of what we're looking at.
Yeah.
I mean, this is idiocracy. You know, we are dealing with just underneath the level of what that movie presented us. But like WWF, WWE, like wrestling stuff would be far more, I think, productive than what we're doing now.
Here comes Joe Biden from underneath the apron with a steel chair. I don't know, man. Like what's left at this point? Yeah. If you're the Democrats, like, and again, and I stick to it, like, it ain't done until someone's getting sworn into me. Because totally. Sorry, but like Donald Trump was supposed to get his ass beat by Hillary Clinton in 2016. And that didn't happen. And it was a huge surprise, even to me. So
yeah, me too.
I'm like, look, man, I'm not throwing chips in, but if I had to be a betting man, I would say all of this news, even if it's noise, is just detrimental. Like
Yeah.
the late half-assed Kamala endorsement, to the Tim Walz pick today, to this news potentially popping up, if there's truth to that. Holy shit.
Right.
Maybe it won't be so goddamn boring until November, but what, you know, yeah.
Well, that's the thing, is that like we're far beyond regular elections. We are 2 or 3. I mean, some would argue further back, but like as far as visually to the public, we are 2 or 3 elections past normal elections. Like, we don't know what to expect anymore. We used to be able to kind of consistently understand a win-loss and be able to recognize the parameters of what even a race looked like. Now we have no idea. Now we have zero idea. So we're all shooting from the hip. We're all in the dark, and it's I think it's intentional. I think the confusion is intentional.
I do
think
too.
What they want.
And it just goes to show how disconnected the elected officials at nearly every layer of American infrastructure are from their voter base. The American electorate and those that are in positions of, elected office are so disconnected now. Whether that's the media or that's just an ingredient, it really is stark, because I couldn't agree with you more on that. That's the truth. Yeah. So speaking of division, by the way.
Yeah.
UK Civil War.
Oh. Yeah. Have you been keeping an eye on that? I mean,
I have. So
it's a powder keg.
To set the table a little bit, and this is a very left-leaning article that I'll read.
Okay.
But basically, B.B. King, Elise Dot Stancombe, and Alice Gasleva Aguiar are all girls under 9 years old that were killed in a multiple stabbing at a Taylor Swift-inspired dance class in Southport on 29 July, and this is sort of the spark. 8 other children sustained knife wounds, with 5 left in critical condition. 2 adults were also critically hurt. This person, Alex, and I'm going to screw this up, Rudakubana, 17 years old, who was born in Cardiff and had been living in Banks, a village in Lancashire, a few miles north of Southport, has been charged with 3 counts of murder and 10 counts of attempted murder. Before the suspect's identity was confirmed, there were a lot of claims proliferated online that he was a Muslim asylum seeker who had arrived to the UK by boat. In the wake of these messages, members of the far right, guided by social media, have gathered in towns and cities across the country, with some shouting anti-immigration and Islamophobic slogans. Counter-protests have also built up, with clashes between opposing groups the entire time. That's the spark that led to where we're at now. What lies below the waterline in all of that is the social media fueling, and there's even like Twitter posts of like all the news articles about like, the immigration problem and all the Islamic folks going to the UK, and all this stuff has been spurning on and on and on. Now, whether it's true or not about this person who is a minor and it is not legal for them to release their identity, but they did to try and quell the outrage in the public, fighting, it has been released so that they could try to quell down, this is not an asylum seeker like you guys keep saying. This is actually somebody who's from here who lived over there. Either way, there's way more to the story than just that. And the person that's sort of like the guy they're painting up that's like whipping everybody into a frenzy and stuff has kind of been on this immigration and asylum seeking train for a long, long, long time. And there were
talking about Tommy Robinson.
Tommy Robinson did interviews that went back several years where he had a bunch of different points that said, hey, look, at this point, this happened. At this point, this happened.
I highly recommend watching the Tommy Robinson video that I just watched yesterday. He just, like 6 days ago, he did an interview with Dr. Jordan Peterson.
I did watch it.
And he went through the whole thing.
And so now we have this fracture with what the public's being told from places like The Guardian, like I just read, And
Right.
what is or is not true there, other than presumably the victims' names and ages, I assume are correct. Everything outside of that, I can't even trust. But that's the spark
Yeah.
that led to what's going on over there. Now, what lies below the waterline on the history on whose context is accurate or not, the issue is it is getting fucking crazy over there. So if you're tuning in or listening, that's kind of where we're jumping into our take point at this moment in time. And I don't believe almost any of what I just read to you from The Guardian, but that's what they're saturating the media circles with today.
Yeah. It reminds me of a story where there was a local tattoo artist here, and he's universally unliked in the northern Idaho and Spokane region. He's been here his whole life, but he's such a horrible human being that everyone kind of ostracized him after a while. Even if you were friends with him, everyone ended up pushing him away because he's just so awful. He's a giant liar. He's volatile. He's angry. He chases clients like all over the place. Like, he's insane. And he's the one guy that I like refused to allow to come to my conventions. Like, I was like, nope, he's blacklisted. That guy just can't be here. Well, like 2 years ago, we had a situation where it got reported in the news that this guy got arrested for a bar fight in Spokane where they went out into the parking lot and he beat a dude to death and got picked up and arrested and spent a couple of months in jail while they investigated it. And turns out it wasn't him. Turns out it was a totally different guy, and they let him out. However, myself included, but every single person that I talked to, every single person who heard the story went, yeah, that sounds about right. Thought he did it. Like, they all thought he did it because of the history of who he was and what was going on. It made logical sense. That reminds me of this situation. This kid may not have been that migrant, but because of what has been going on there the entire time, where there's whole sections of cities that you can't go into without your daughters and wives and sisters getting raped, because it's culturally okay, to do that. That there's all sorts of that been going on for going on 20 years.
It's the drop of gasoline in a giant bucket of fuel.
Yeah. And so now this kid who may not have been a migrant, at least first generationally, and in fact, from what I understand, is actually not even Muslim from what I've been seeing the reports coming in.
There's counter reports about, born into Christian parents, local guy, whatever. There's all this conflicting.
But what they did is they created a powder keg for something like this to happen, and they don't even care. Like, it's just violence against their kids. It's violence against their daughters, and it's the buildup, and it's the primary target or the primary group that has been at the forefront of this has been that migrant immigration. So they swept it all up together. Okay, we don't even care. We don't care if this kid's from here or whatever, but we're just done. We're done with having our daughters getting raped and stabbed.
And from what I've seen, the headlines are principally coming from The Guardian to stoke fires such as this, long before taking the side of, you guys are all wrong. This is a right-wing element that's absolutely crazed. It's all Islamophobia. It's all there. But take a look back at all of the headlines from The Guardian over the last year regarding immigration. It'll blow your fucking mind. Front page hard copies, dozens of them.
If it was a right-wing group that is the only ones that are coming out here to be just racist and stuff, and you got a problem on your hands, because that is literally thousands and thousands and tens of thousands of people.
Yeah.
So are they all right-wing extremists? Every single person out there in the street saying this has got to stop?
Unlikely.
That means then your voting base is completely changed, and they're all right-wing extremists now.
Yeah.
So that it doesn't logically or mathematically make sense. What you have is cities of people who are now fed up after dozens of years of them having to deal with their cities getting handed over to people that want nothing but to harm the people that they love.
Mhm.
You can't you know cut that pie any other way. You've got only so much land in those regions. There's
And
only so many places to go.
that's also not to say that this podcast is endorsing the idea that every single immigrant that draws breath
Not even remotely.
meant harm, but you have to understand the context for what it's worth. So just throwing that out there is a bit of a CYA, but at the same time, that's like assuming everybody that was pulled on this issue that falls to the far left are only the left side of the Brexit conditional argument. Like,
Right.
Okay, I think we're missing a couple of key ingredients here. There's more to this story, which is why I led the way I did. Like, this is not my input. This is what we're being fed. 100%.
Yeah. And it is, I don't think it's going to get any better.
I hope it gets better, but I don't think
this
it will either, at least not in the near term.
Unfortunately, I think what we're looking at is, a Lexington moment here. And I think that
most of this is happening in Northern Ireland, by the way, like a lot of this stuff. So
yeah,
that's
Ireland's
a bit of a powder keg, historically speaking, anyway.
Yeah, they're already at wit's end up in that region, and they're not about to. Yeah, so it's. I don't think it's going to get any better, but I think that, I mean, we're looking in the last 5 years. There hasn't been a day I haven't looked at the news where there hasn't been, and a lot of people are completely oblivious to this. But if you look over at European news or kind of alternative outlets, there are massive protests going on in Paris all the time now. Huge anti-establishment protests
the
going
French
on in
farming
Greece,
community, like
all over. And it's nearly daily. It just pick a region in Europe, and you're going to find some riots going on at this point. And so, but this one is getting a little bit more traction, and it's due to the fact that some little girls were killed, and there's a sentiment growing out of that region of enough's enough, and we're done.
Yep.
And it's a powder keg that I think, depending on how the UK government, which at this point hasn't been handling it well, but if they continue to handle it this way, it's only going to escalate it. It's only going to create a.
Here's me being transparent with my ignorance to English law. I think it's their parliament that needs to start talking about this formally. And I also think their parliament is on like a break of some kind, like a hiatus or not a shutdown, but it's like they're
not in session.
It's on their vacation. I don't fucking know how this works. They used to have a queen.
Yeah.
But I think they're calling for them to come back so that they could try to address stuff like this. So we'll see. But I could be dead wrong. I don't know if any of what I just said is true.
Even if they do, they're so tied into the ideology that above all else, that they have to protect the PC kind of quotient of making sure that in their minds, written on paper, that the marginalized groups, which only fit a certain group, certain sect of people, are protected at all costs, no matter what. So at the expense of their own people, at the expense of the taxpayers that pay taxes there, at the expense of the people's health and welfare, they will protect their interests. And the parliament in that region of the world, in whether Great Britain or in Northern Ireland either, has been kind of taken over by extremists in the other end of that spectrum. And so they're probably SOL as far as getting any help from their legislation to really.
I'm sure the marginalized communities are going to be the victims yet again, and knives will be the problem, not the actual root cause of the problem.
Right. Yeah. So
Meanwhile, back in America,
Yeah.
stock price is down quite a bit.
This is something that I think you might know a little bit more about than me, just
I have
because
some thoughts.
I do not dally or dilly in any of those regions. I have often been quoted as saying that I believe that Bitcoin and any of those um, digital currencies is as good as um, Roblox money to me,
Yeah.
or um,
Well, on that we agree.
Minecraft
Yeah.
Cash.
I
Yeah.
I
But
think the basic
stocks
premise. Yeah, I think the basic
has a lot to
premise.
do with.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say stocks have a lot more to do, historically, obviously, with the with how our predictors for not only current economy but also future economy
Mm-hmm.
roll out, and we need, from what I understand, and I watched a lot of friends kind of uh, get very worried over the last week. It is looking dire, to say the least.
Yeah.
And so,
Guilty as charged on both the dilly and the dallying in the stock
yeah.
market. I'm with you there on the Bitcoin stuff. I think unregulated digital currencies, to the best of my explanation, are valued at whatever someone is willing to pay for them that day. So they're not backed by gold or businesses, or there's no valuation to it other than what someone's willing to pay for it that day, which is the principal reason why I've stayed away from the Bitcoins of the world.
Yeah.
I don't believe in
Absolutely.
it, because in order for it to be legitimized, it has to be regulated. And the fabric of what it is to exist without regulation. So when those two are at odds and there is no middle ground, it is literally worth whatever someone's willing to pay for it the day that they're willing to pay for it. So I don't really believe in it. So fast forward to the stock market, the non-digital currency part. Bit of a spark on this one as well, which I think is a major miss in U.S. labor numbers, which was just released. So the July jobs report showed that the United States added just 114,000 new jobs in July, which is well below expectations. The unemployment rate climbed to a 3-year high of 4.3%, and that's after the downward revisions for June, after they adjusted expectations down, which they also did for April and March. The adjustments are down to the median bottom average. In other words, the July number is not a blip. It's basically a trend. That's where we're at since April. This suggests that July numbers are probably going to get chopped as well, just following suit. The news fanned long smoldering fears of a U.S. recession, which I agree with. And it's really blowing the knees out of whatever exuberance was keeping the stocks at historic highs. The bottom's dropping out. The problem is nobody knows how far it's going to drop. So, taking a political turn, Kamala Harris is fully on board that the war on carbon fuels will leave the nation unable to power the AI computers. That's been the central driver of the stock market optimism in the last couple of years, is the AI boom and what that's going to do for modern business worldwide. Other part of the story is massive debt-fueled Biden-Harris government spending that's keeping the economy at a really high price, and in high gear. But what we've done here is we've normalized $7 trillion a year in federal outlays, and $2 trillion of that is borrowed. And that's all to keep the core constituencies fat and happy with the prevailing administration at the moment in time. That's sort of the political turn to that. So now it seems, basically, we're watching triggered soaring inflation that hasn't stopped since before I bought my house, which I had to buy some points down on to even get to. This obliged our Federal Reserve to spike interest rates, and it still makes it risky for the Fed to start easing up because of the spending and the debt that's behind it. It's also killing the job market. And we're at lower and lower points at 4.3 and falling at this point against the net new job index. So it now seems the stock market is following suit. So basically, if you look at the larger political picture from a pro-right-wing perspective, Team Biden has essentially rolled over for every single bloodthirsty tyrant from Kabul to Moscow to Tehran to Beijing, yielding wars right now in Europe and the Middle East at the same time, and the prospect of another one in East Asia further undermining the confidence in our international markets. This is a recipe for a pretty bad decline. So,
And a really great commercial for Trump 2024.
which he's leveraging right now. He's calling it the Kamala crash because she's the face he can put to it. This was not her doing it exclusively, but
Not even
as her odds of victory may or may not be climbing, coupled with the sell-off that's going on in the market, this is likely starting to price in another 4 years of fundamental failure in the life or death condition of the current market base if Kamala Harris wins the White House. So that's kind of what's tipping the massive crash, in my opinion, is the aggregation of the job index and the unemployment rate, the fact that we have normalized a ridiculous amount in trillions of spending backed by extra trillions of debt behind that, and zero international confidence in America's markets or our ability to sustain a wild amount of money going to Ukraine through all of this, and interest rates. If the Fed doesn't ease up on this, are we going to be out there frivolously spending money in our economy? Probably not. So where's the bottom? We're not quite sure yet. But if this tips into a recession, if the market trend continues, and I think we only have 17 to 20 more points to go, we're there. And if she wins the White House, it's going to keep getting worse if this pattern continues like it has for the last 4 years. That's my hot take.
Well, it's not just your hot take. It's actually even CNBC guys. The Mad Money host Jim Cramer, the guy who has been wrong for most of his career, but still has his career. But he is known as the guy who smashes the hammer, for those who aren't familiar with him, right?
Yeah.
And but even him today, he said on his show, says if you're in the stock market, if you care about your paycheck, you will go with Trump. This is a never Trumper Democrat. Like the 8-year hating the guy, has now turned and said, we're all going to lose everything. The country, everything. We're all going to lose it unless you vote for Trump. And that is essentially, I don't care how much of the far left you get. I don't care with that new VP pick, how cornered you have that market with the extreme far left. It doesn't matter. People's wallets matter. And this is what even the leftist money guys are going to go, I can't afford a Kamala Harris presidency.
Nobody can. I have personally lost 1/3 of my retirement in this administration.
Yeah.
As far as valuation is concerned. Yep.
And you are nowhere near even a drop in the bucket of a loan on that. Like the fact that there are millions of people who are in the same boat you are, who had settled retirement, who were going to be coasting. They're just about to close out their life and just go, okay, I'm going to retire. I got my stockpile that just got it all stripped away. These people who are probably, even boomers that are just on the edge of retirement, and older Gen Xers that are on the edge of retirement, even if they voted Democrat their entire lives, it doesn't matter. They're about to lose all of their retirement. They see that coming. They know the fix. They're not dumb.
I don't even give Social Security a decade.
No, not even. No.
With today's numbers, I don't think it will exist in 10 years. So if I cut that off, that's it. That's more than the 1/3 I just mentioned of my own potential retirement assets. And that's looking 25 to 30 years into the future, which may, just for survival's sake, tack on another 10 years worth of work if things don't recover.
Those numbers of those people that are going to be affected by this, which is in the millions, those people that aren't what they would consider kind of gimme votes for the Democratic Party, you know, they're going to lose them all.
Yeah,
And
if you're
I don't even
if you're
think
fiscally conservative and socially Democrat or whatever the case is, my
right.
guess is based on these numbers and the current trends, and now the realization, not tacitly but exactly on the stock market over the last week and continuing, I think you're going to vote with the conservative half of your ideology.
Yeah,
Yeah.
agreed. So you couple that with the what we had spoke to earlier of the fact that uh, all of the middle of the road and independents that would be voting for a Kennedy situation are all going to go in the opposite direction
Mhm.
too. They're leaking votes like a blown out sieve. Like they just don't understand that the economy is where people are going to vote no matter what. Like wars, social issues. Like they're really trying to make abortion kind of the and the Roe v. Wade thing kind of their key talking points, and it's just a non-starter when everyone's losing their finances and can't afford their mortgages and aren't able to buy groceries at a regular rate for
I
their
mean,
families. Like come
caveat,
on,
we hope. Caveat.
yeah,
I mean, we're kind of in
yeah,
uncharted waters nowadays. I mean,
yeah. That's
I've been
fair enough.
surprised 4 times in one day at the political landscape. But yeah,
Yeah,
I certainly fucking hope so. Like,
yeah,
and that brings up another thing, like hitting very close to home. I willfully moved into an area that I knew doesn't have an agricultural base to it. Like all of our food gets sent to us. Then
yeah,
nothing grows here. So that is excruciating when the same amount of your grocery bill that you go to click reorder on, as an example from a year ago, is 2.5 to 3.5 times the cost for the same stick of butter, gallon of milk, and box of mac and cheese as it was a year ago, 2 years ago.
yeah,
That's wild. So there
yeah.
has to be a stopping point where we go, okay, even if I agree with you from a morals perspective, I can't afford to agree with you for another 4 years. Should it surprise anyone if the minimum wage is raised up enough where it's now, let's say, $20-$25 an hour to go flip burgers at a burger joint? How are they going to stay surviving on the margins of a brick and mortar burger store? I'll tell you how. It's raised the price of the hamburger to $28 to $35 per burger. Nobody buys it. They go underneath, and that's what you get for raising minimum wage as a state mandate, Gavin.
Yeah.
And it's happening. Like the pandemic was one excuse, the non-essential employee, all the way out to the we just can't afford to survive because, well, you said nobody could leave their house, so they're not buying hamburgers in other places like Seattle and other stuff. I mean, how many businesses went under for that in the local economy just in Seattle? I mean, and I talked about that on a show a lifetime ago, but the answer is quite a bit. I think they lost 20 something % of their small business ownership base.
It was upwards of 45%
in 2020.
Yeah,
it climbed to nearly half by the end of this shit. And yeah, so if you look at well, let's just raise minimum wage and let's just keep the inflation where it's at. The answer is I have to charge you $30 for a hamburger, and then I gotta pay the employee, pay rent, pay the food service provider, take care of the supply chain, and have the overhead for the insurance. And I might make a nickel on that hamburger at the end of the day. I can't sustain.
Yeah.
So you've got to kind of start voting with your wallet a little bit, folks, because this is happening in real time now.
In California, I just read too that they are unsatisfied with their new raise already.
Imagine.
And they're already demanding more.
Imagine.
And upwards of $30 an hour to work at McDonald's, work at a fast food restaurant. So that just came across the wire, I think a day or two ago. I saw that, and just of course, sitting on the couch chuckling under my breath I was like, of course, you idiots. And how, especially with food costs rising and the fact that the shipping costs and everything else that has anything to do with running even a small restaurant.
Yeah.
You cannot afford to. I mean, even the hamburgers in North Idaho right now, you're hard pressed to go to McDonald's or we have a place called Rogers up here. And we went to Rogers and there wasn't a burger on the menu that was under $14.
Mm-hmm.
And we're like, are you insane? This is a $6 hamburger.
I'm gonna
there was
I'm gonna pull this up right now while we're doing this live. I just went to like Grubhub, and I'm gonna click on I want a delivery hamburger.
This will be fun.
And we're gonna take a look at what this price should cost. Okay, I'm just gonna do McDonald's. Why not? What? I'm going to go all the way to individual items. What do you imagine before delivery a quarter pounder with cheese should cost?
What it should cost,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm going to be honest about this. I mean, even with inflation, I think that a quarter pounder with cheese should cost, in this day and age, in 2024, and we're just talking the burger, no meal, right?
Just a burger.
Just a burger. That is a $4.50 to $5.50 burger.
Mm-hmm. $9.09.
Yeah. Yep. And then you add fries to that and a drink, and you're looking at,
you get into the delivery fees, the subsidy. A bottle of water is $4.
Yeah.
It's less for a cup of coffee than a bottle of water. I mean, this is where we're at right now. That's just pulling that up live.
I went to McDonald's with my family one night after the shop, and we had to drop somebody off. And in this area once, and we were still living in Post Falls, in this area, after a certain time frame, there's only a handful of things open. We were tired, and we're like, normally we don't eat McDonald's. We drove through McDonald's because it was cheap, it was fast, let's just get it done and get home. And it's the first time we'd had McDonald's in like years.
Yeah.
And I pull in, and we order the things. I don't even look. I'm not even looking at the prices. I'm just looking at the menu items.
Yeah.
And then she tells me the price for 3 people was like $65 for 3 people to get. We didn't get anything extravagant. We got each of us a burger, fries, and a drink. And it was $65. And I was like, I'm sorry, did you say $65? Did you get that right? They're like, yeah. Blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, this is insane. This food is not worth that price.
Correct. Like, and so I bought a medium pizza.
What I do, and they're not going to be able to afford their grocery bill, or they're not going to go out to eat anymore. So all of the wait staff is going to go down. They're going to automate all the wait staff, and then that's never going to go away. Mm-hmm. Like the ripple effect impacts of what all of these things are going to do are terrifying, and it's all stems out of, we're talking about, we started off talking about job markets and stock crashes, so all of that impacts.
Yeah, we can't sustain the inflation going out of control the way it is. We just can't. And when people start to shut down and the consumer index starts to fall because no one's buying stuff, that's when we hit into a massive recession. And we rely on benchmarking this stuff with the Fortune 500 companies. That's what the S&P 500 index is. It's the top 500 companies. And that stuff just can't sustain with the amount of inflation and spend that we have. Also, for chat, I recognize my internet is going up and down, and so our stream may be chopping up or cut out a couple times. I apologize. I did get a note that said they're rolling over a bunch of network things all week long in my area, so I apologize if the live stream drops, just by the way, but the recording will be up unrestricted at the end of this, so I apologize for that. Nature of the beast. All right, and so another thing before we get into some fun topics like pop culture things, you wanted to talk about a transient tax, and I know we're probably gonna piss and moan at one another about this, but walk me through what's going on. Walk me through what's going on.
So there's been a proposal here in my local area by a lady, and it became kind of a hot topic. She proposed it that she's going at one of the Republican meetings, and she's a really great lady, really smart lady. She's actually an Emmy award winning writer for television years and
Nice.
years ago. And um, gotten to know her a little bit over the course of the last couple of years. She ran for an office and got in kind of late, didn't win, but she's smart. And we have had a crushing amount of um, county taxes having to be raised for different things, and levies for the schools, and which also impacts property taxes.
Mm-hmm.
And so people's property taxes are skyrocketing here. And we don't, as a community, as a county, as a state, we don't implement impact fees for developers, which we should. We don't impact, or we don't have any other kind of accommodations to kind of alleviate the tax burden. We just kind of shoulder it and then fight over it for a little bit to see, I'm definitely in the kind of more libertarian camp of all taxes are evil, taxation is theft. We should wipe them all away. That's where I'm at mentally, and I fully agree with that. However, I'm also realistic about it, and I understand that you cannot take that away.
Yeah.
And then expect society to keep moving forward. It will absolutely collapse society. So you have to chip away at it like they layered it upon us over the course of many decades. You have to layer it back, or you're going to have absolute devastation. I'm 100% against all taxes. It's just part of the nature of who I am. It is a reality that we have to pay them. It is a reality of where we are today.
Yeah.
Should we legislate them away piece by piece? Absolutely. Let's find a way to do it without hurting the populace. So, so that's where I'm at with that. So, she proposed that there are 38 states within the United States that have what is known as a transient tax, which is also kind of known as a
tourism
visitor
tax,
or tourism tax, basically. Yeah. And we aren't one of them. So Idaho does not have that. We are a resort town. Coeur d'Alene is a resort town, and our primary source of income is tourism. So it used to not be. We used to have a bunch of, we had mills and we had all sorts of mining and stuff like that. But
so
now,
let me unpack this for a second. Where we're at in this story is that you're not cool with taxes unless it's out of state transient motherfuckers, and then you're okay with taking other people's money. I see. I see. Okay.
Well, what I am okay with. What I am okay with is having people who use the resources of the area.
Yeah.
Help shoulder that weight.
Yeah.
And I'm totally okay with that. Like, most of the time when there is a transient tax on any community, most of the people going there don't even know it's there.
Right.
And so what I was fully in agreement with her on this. And there was so much pushback, like, no, all taxes are bad taxes. That's stupid. I was like, okay, then what is your proposal? How do you propose bringing your property taxes down? Any ideas? Because this ship doesn't run on magic and dreams. So let's come up with some realistic understanding where we're actually alleviating some of the weight that we're going to be having as a community, and actually putting it and shifting it onto a different community that's coming through here that won't notice. They're like, no, it'll absolutely impact our tourism. People won't come here. The people won't tip our waiters, and they all rely on the tourism, and it'll impact that. I was like,
well, 37 out of the other 50 options they could pick, they're going to get hit with the same charge. So
exactly.
Yeah.
So I started thinking about it. I was like, well, that's not even remotely true. I mean, Vegas, absolutely has this transient tax. Most metropolitan areas do. But even so, I was like, but what about like smaller cities that are like resort cities, like destination spots? So I started trying to think of areas that were very similar, and then look into them and see if they have them. So, like, for instance, I was looking at other lake towns, And so Lake Havasu, I was just there. My grandma lives there. My cousins live there. Lake Havasu has exactly the same population that Coeur d'Alene, Idaho has at just 57,000 and change. It is a lake community. There's no reason to
Not
go to
3
Lake
million
Havasu.
like I thought a few weeks ago. Turns out.
Havasu actually has oh wow, I'm blanking. Havasu has no other reason to go there. They are a destination only. Like you go there for the lake and for tourism and to go see the London Bridge, and that is it. There's nothing else there. It is it is vacant all around it. So so destination tourism only. They have it. And not only do they have it for their hotels and even some restaurants. If you show that you're a local, you get the local discount, which is also kind of a bonus to the locals who live there. They go, oh, cool, I'm a local and I don't have to pay the transient tax. But it's for the hotels. It's for, certain bars and restaurants and stuff like that. And what it does
is not a new idea. This is a cut, copy, paste idea. Yeah, absolutely.
And so what it does is it takes the burden of the infrastructure that they use. They use our wastewater, they use our water, they use our roads, they use all of our, infrastructure. And then they leave and we have to pay for it. So instead of us having to always whip up more taxes and grumble about it, why don't we just have all the people who won't even notice that there's a 3% thing on their bills and are going to come here anyway? I don't think there's a single person in history who went, ooh, let's go to Lake Chelan. Oh, wait, there's a 3% transient tax. Well, let's never go there. Or if we do go there, we're just not going to tip the waitress. That's just not a real concept. And so that's the argument that they're making, and that is unrealistic. There's proof after proof after proof after proof that is not a real thing. So I then looked at Lake Chelan because it was close by, in Washington State. Same thing. They've got the same thing. So then I went to Lake Tahoe. Lake Tahoe, same thing, even on the California side. I would imagine that within the 38 states that all of it, and they don't have to. If the state allows it, which it has to be done at the state level for there to be the legal right for a county or a city or a province to actually implement those transient taxes, they have the right to do it, but it has to be greenlit by the state legislature.
Correct.
But the county doesn't have to if they don't want to.
Also
so
correct.
all of these counties, all of these cities that have implemented this because they are resort towns, they're tourism towns, they seem to be just fine. They seem to be flourishing in any decent economy, but even in the bad economies, people travel. When they travel, they don't even look that up. And so they will go to these places because they want to go to those places, not because it's a bargain where you don't have to pay a 3% tax to go to. That's absurd. And so my argument is that, it seems to be pretty standard. Why aren't we doing it here within our community, along with impact fees for development companies who then, when they come in, they've got to pay for all the schools. They have to pay for the new firehouse, all the new roads, all of those things. Those impact fees, which we don't use, in tandem with a transient tax, man, we can fund all of our own schools. We won't have to worry about our sheriff's pods not being built because there isn't enough money to go around.
Now we're on the same side. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So there's two primary ways that the state I live in makes money, and that is hotel occupancy sales tax and transient tax, and the DMV. Right. So if you register a car in the state that I live in, the newer the car, the more expensive it is. And as time progresses, it gets less and less and less. But they also make you do things like smog check every year, not every other year. Doesn't matter what car it is. You've got to get through it. You got to go through all that stuff. So that's how the state makes money. The sales tax is different by jurisdiction in the same county here, which is also a bit of a mind meld. So you can go over here and buy a soda with a 1 penny tax, and over there across the street a soda with a 2 penny tax. It's the nature of the beast.
I remember crossing over the border and going to buy a bottle of water that was $2.99, and they were like $2.99, and I was like, "What? There's no sales tax on this?"
Some places have no sales tax at all.
But then going down kind of into the city area, there are.
Yeah,
and they're minimal, but they're there, and it's
same rules apply where the county doesn't have to participate, but the pockets within the county can mandate their own tax within whatever's legislated as acceptable at that point. So I understand now that like the major cities don't purely benefit off of the proceeds of things like mining operations, even though Nevada state is a big mining state. It is principally by hotel sales occupancy. And the reason why they cramp down on places like if you have short-term rentals, Airbnbs, things like that, is because you're taking away that revenue. And that's not just casino money. It's shared amongst the taxation that comes off the hotel sales occupancy tax and the transient tax. My issue, I'm with you. All taxes are bad, but the fundamental reality is that without it, our state would be bankrupt. My issue in my state particularly is where the money goes, because we don't impose the out-of-state developers to come in and actually pay for what they're consuming, right? You actually have to pay into this area if you want to develop for it, not just gather as much proceeds as you can, sell off to a small elite group of owners where they just mandate renting for the rest of their life on long term so they can avoid the transient tax. We have a lot of our money going into the stadiums and the stadium sustainment districts that as part of, like, you get to watch where they parse out all the transient tax. A certain percentage goes here and there, and schools and cops and whatever. Yeah. I'm cool with that. What I'm not cool with is like the stadium stuff, because it's like, well, wait a minute. If we build multiple stadiums in this area, we are inviting net new jobs to come in and should be taxing from that plant out into the rest of the tax pool, not paying for taxes that help them skip theirs so they can make whatever sales tax that jurisdiction allows and goes back into who owns the stadium. Like, it's a free fucking ride for those guys. So while it's super cool that the new jobs are coming in, and it's super cool that the Oakland Raiders are now the Las Vegas Raiders, and soon the Oakland A's are going to be the Las Vegas A's as they, rip apart a casino and put one right on the strip. And the best memes, of the Mirage coming down, and instead they've got the what's that Spirit Halloween store opening up in the where the Mirage was. Like, aside from all that, I take keen and particular interest with where that tax money goes, because if it's not benefiting local communities top down, I'm less interested in paying for it. And I am pissy pantsy when I do travel, and I'm like, what the fuck? Like, I went to San Diego and I had a pretty big bill where I was taxed on 3 different line items. The hotel occupancy tax, I think, was 2%, which is pretty much par for the course wherever you go as being out of state. It was the other city taxes and all the other shit was $6 here and $3 there. I was like, God damn. I think my tax line item for one night's hotel stay was somewhere north of $40 in totality. And that was a lot, but I don't disagree with you. I would keep a keen and transparent eye on where the money goes. And if developers are coming in, they are not exempt from having to pay taxes forward before they develop the areas by which the local jurisdiction can tax from. So it's got to be reciprocal.
What we're working on is trying to get impact fees here, which are a couple of our local elected officials have been kind of gunning for.
Yeah.
We just got a new commissioner who might be on board with that. So we're kind of, he'll be our new commissioner in November.
And one example, like, to the locals being exempt from that hit kind of home when you were talking about it was, I'm not a golf guy at all, but one of my close friends came down and was like, let's go to Top Golf. And I'm like, let's not go to Top Golf. All right, let's go to Top Golf. And we ordered like a pitcher of beer and some snacks, and we were sitting there, and the gal that was helping us out saw when I opened my wallet that I had a in-state driver's license. And she's like, oh, you're a local. Remind me before you check out. All right. And before I could remind her, she actually remembered, you're the local, right? And I was like, yep. She gave me 30% off the entire bill and was kind of like, thank you for putting your money back into this economy.
Back into the economy,
because we're going to charge the living shit out of everyone we see because they're all not from here because it's Las Vegas.
Right.
Made a lot of sense. And I was like, oh, cool. And there's like quite a bit of pockets of that will be, you kind of have to ask for it because nobody assumes you're not from out of town. Everyone they see all day is from out of town. So it's kind of a fun game. But in that occasion, it wasn't just the tax I got off. I got 30% off the whole bill, which was crazy. Now, let's not all rush to Topgolf and expect 30% off if you're an in-state resident here. Maybe she thought I was cute. I don't know. The point was,
well, I do.
That stuff was like actually kind of meaningful, and it did spark that memory where it's like, yep, as long as you can show the ID, I don't see any reason why not, based on the fact that it's you guys that are going to have to come up with the differential taxes anyway if you don't have that type of stuff. So why not punish the other guy?
We're enough. We're a small enough community, also, and we're a real hardcore watchdog community on all of. Like, my wife is currently sitting at a city council meeting where they're going over budgeting and stuff. So like we don't allow them to spend our money in ways that we don't want them to. And there's a lot of people within our groups, my wife's in my groups, that keep tabs on every dollar that goes through the hands of our government officials. And so, if we don't like it, we make a fuss. We're loud about it. And so we don't, like you said, making sure where that money is going.
That's critical.
With that transient tax. Yeah, I think that would be par for the course for what we're doing here. I think it would be easy for us to do as well because we're already kind of on top of where all of our taxing districts are putting their cash and putting our cash. And so that I think would be harder to do in a metropolitan area such as Vegas, but in a town of 57,000, it's a little easier to do when you know the names and are familiar with every single person who's in charge of spending the money you just gave them. It's a little bit easier to handle here, and I think that we would have no problem doing that. So I don't see a downside to a transient tax. I don't think it's going to affect or hurt our tourism. I don't think it's going to affect or hurt the pocketbooks of
not at 2 or 3%. Probably not, because I guarantee you're still saving money spending that over in Coeur d'Alene than you would be in a Seattle or in a Portland or in a San Francisco. Right? So you're going to get hit with the same target charge. It's just the aggregate bill will be much higher for the same exact thing.
It's not a deterrent, and it's not a deterrent for the wait staff of any place where they're serving alcohol or food, or the hotel staff. It's literally not a deterrent at all, but they're trying to make it seem like it is just so that they can continue playing the all taxes are bad card, which I get. Like I am on the same page as that. Yeah. I have a Gadsden flag too, guys, but it is one of those things that I'm also realistic about understanding that we can't just wipe it away. So what are the cards that we have in our hand right now? Let's play the cards that we have in our hand. Let's shift that weight.
If the end game is that taxes are going to go up by a certain percentage to cover these needs, no matter what, it behooves one to implement a transient tax to offset what you're going to pay out of pocket anyway, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Seems like a fair argument to me. Yeah. So I don't totally disagree. I was scaring you a little bit to gear up to like try and tear it apart with the holier than thou anti-tax stuff. But to be perfectly honest with you, I recognize in the state I live in, that's how we have to make money for things that we expect to help run the infrastructure that we enjoy. Yeah. It sucks that I have to pay an unbelievable amount of money to register a car, a truck, and a motorcycle every year, and then take all of them to smog, or 2 out of 3 of them to smog.
That's a tax revenue that we don't have. We don't have to, in the state of Idaho, we don't have smog.
But if I were to stay downtown, low. Right? Like I'm not paying the transient tax, so I just got to spend more time in the local economy in order to save money, right? I don't know if that's how that works. But yeah, I'm not
transient tax is also supposed to offset some of those taxes that you'd be paying if you didn't have a transient tax. you'd be paying way more in your sales tax. You'd be paying way more in your property tax.
Or we
You'd be
would
paying
implement
way,
a state tax.
yeah.
We would have to.
So, yeah.
Yep.
So it is literally alleviating the bottom line of taxes that
Well,
you're personally paying.
In a way, it's trading like for like, because we don't have an agricultural export. You live in a state that is renowned for gems and gemstones. You live in a state that has a pretty sizable potato growing operation and apple orchard population and different things of that nature. You can rely to a degree on taxing that side of things. We ain't got shit here. All we can tax are people coming to visit. That's literally all we got. So I think without it, we'd be in way worse shape. We'd have to implement a state tax. Conditions for living would be quite a bit lower in aggregate as a result of that, because there's no industry here outside of
and they haven't quite
tourism.
figured out the cactus tax yet.
Not yet. So
yes,
give them time.
They're working on.
The other thing too is once that's lit up, it will never go away, and that's why I keep saying, to your point, and God bless your wife for doing it. Like stay on their ass about where that money's being spent. Watchdog them and go to these things, because once it's there, it's not coming back. So if it's misappropriated off the top and you still have to pay extra property taxes and stuff, them's the beans. You all allowed it to happen. So I do see the long-term argument of mismanagement being a factor in why I would say no taxes for Trent. No one, but not because people aren't going to come here.
Yeah.
It's because, well, taxes may still go up anyway. And now you got both. You're just not paying for one if you have an in-state resident card. So that's my possible tip the hat to the opposition there. I could see that, but long term, your guys' government is super strong. You have no problems. There's no squibbles.
Yeah, it's been great.
Trust them.
Yeah, just smooth sailing.
Blindly and wholeheartedly. Yeah, 100%.
So I think that it's something that it has been kind of bubbling up here over the in our chats and stuff. So I wanted to kind of address that because it's been a big issue throughout the course of the last couple of years, is that we have been raked over the coals with property taxes, and we've had a couple of huge levies for the schools that have just kind of crushed a lot of the retired people here who thought they were going to die in the house that they've owned for 40 years, and now they had to sell it because they couldn't afford the property taxes.
Yeah, look, I mean, it's all bad, but at the end of the day, it could be much, much worse than the imposition of an additional levy property tax, or the imposition of an additional sales tax on food or agriculture or groceries or gas or anything that you need to operate your economy in that space. So given the cards you're dealt, which is an apt analogy, I think that would be the way I would play them too.
Also, just on a side note, you had mentioned a couple of sports teams. You had mentioned the Oakland Raiders and the soon-to-be Oakland Athletic, or
Athletics.
Vegas, the Vegas Athletics. We actually, oddly enough, on Sunday we found out. I think we found out Saturday night or something like that. That the Las Vegas Golden Knights were here at Frontier Arena, which is where my son plays hockey, to do a tour. Nice. And a bunch of the players were here. So we went down there, and Oliver got to hang out with some of the Las Vegas Golden Knights. And so we thought for a long time that our team, because we were going to move to Charleston, right? Yeah. Charleston, South Carolina. So we were trying to pick our family hockey team, and we weren't about to pick the Seattle Kraken because Seattle. But so we thought, well, what's the closest team, professional hockey team to Charleston? And it's they're in North Carolina. They're only like 3 or 4 hours away, but it's the Hurricane. And so we kind of latched onto them, but they were okay. They're not really exciting. We were just going to be local. That's our local team. That's who we're going to go with. But we have decided, I think, as a family, because of you living down there.
Yeah, let's go.
That we're going as a family with our family hockey team is now going to be the Las Vegas Golden Knights.
I'm throwing
Yeah.
magical. It's not confetti. It's sand because that's what I have down here. Yeah, the Golden Knights
my
are.
next visit down there, I'll probably be picking up a hat.
There you go.
You know, so yeah.
Spend that tax money
Yep.
in our economy for a minute. Yeah.
My transient tax money is going
Get down
right
here.
into your economy.
Get down here. Get involved. No, that's cool. I mean, because the only other teams you could really support that would be semi-local, I don't know hockey very well, but I think there's like a Anaheim Ducks and maybe a San Jose Sharks, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. But welcome to Las Vegas, fucking rooting. Yeah. Let's go.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, there's Colorado teams, the Avalanche and stuff.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
Screw them. So, but no, I think we're going Golden Knights. We like the colors. We like the team. And it just happens that we just, jumped on board of a team that won the Stanley Cup last year. This year it was, I don't even remember who, but last year it was Golden Knights. So
yeah, funny thing, that's the only professional hockey game. I've gone to a semi-pro hockey game once, but a friend of mine came up. He's like, I got tickets to any Kraken game, and I chose the Vegas Knights because I'd be here for it, and it was the season opener. And I guess they won the cup last year, and so they did a big ceremony before the game, and they all had the Stanley Cup and all that. And I was like, I think this is the closest I'll ever physically be to the Stanley Cup, which is kind of cool because I don't know shit about hockey. It's not really my thing. Love the environment because it's fun, and even in nosebleed, the people around us were a ton of fun.
Hockey games are a blast.
It wasn't like Raiders fans, which, I mean, you could get stabbed legitimately for wearing the wrong thing in the black hole or near it. But welcome. I'm excited. Yeah. Go Knights. Yeah.
Golden Knights. Yeah, that's our jam now. So, but
So you got some pop culture stuff to walk me through because I am very divorced from both of these segments, man.
Okay. Well, I'm going to start with the good because I think after talking Kamala Harris and riots in England and taxes, I thought I should go into something a little bit more positive. I had a chance on Thursday night. I tattooed my daughter again. So she got her second tattoo, and she got the license plate from the car Baby from the show Supernatural.
Okay.
We got that on right above her knee.
So not a neck or face tattoo?
Yeah, not yet. Okay. No, she's waiting
next year
until after. Yeah. She's waiting until after she has kids for that. She was insistent. In fact, both the kids were insistent because I had greenlit because for years I would not allow them to watch the Deadpool movies.
Mm-hmm.
They're just too vulgar.
They're very much.
They're kind of fantasy goodness, but they are not.
No, the subject matter is extremely mature, and
right. And so it's not for kids. And so they kept asking every once in a while, "Are we old enough yet?" I'm like, "Nope. But now my daughter's 18, so I can't really say no to her anymore. And my son is 15, going on 16. He's got a 17-year-old girlfriend. He's he's not supposed to date, but like she's a nice girl, so we're cool with it. And he's grown up in a tattoo shop. He worked for the last couple of years.
Sure.
There's nothing that Deadpool's going to say that Frank hasn't said.
Yeah.
So or Derek hasn't teased him about, right? So
you kept them from it as long as possible, but at this point they've probably seen it all. So
right. So we ended up watching both Deadpool 1, which I fast forwarded the 4-minute all season sex scene.
Yeah. Good call.
Yeah. So went through that, and then the rest of the movie, I was like, it's just him making dick jokes and talking trash. Right. So, and then we watched the second one the following night, and it was right before the Deadpool Wolverine movie was coming out. And so on Thursday night, I tattooed her, but it was a short tattoo. So she's like, let's all go see Deadpool Wolverine right now. And then Aaron was just like, I don't know if I want to see it.
Mhm.
You know, and I was like, yeah, like I'm just not in the mood. They bullied us. My children bullied us into going to see this. So we did.
Imagine.
Yeah, the four of us all went up to the Hayden Discount Cinemas,
Mhm.
and we went up there, and I think it's just Hayden Cinemas now. I don't
Yeah.
think the discount's part of it anymore. Um,
That used to be the best $1.50 matinee, though. Like,
yeah,
I'll
dude, it
wait
was
2
great.
weeks for it to hit the cheap theater, and I'll see it for $1.50 alone because there won't be anyone there. Yeah.
Right, it
Anyway.
was awesome. But yeah, so we went and saw it, Deadpool and Wolverine, and you know, last week we were waxing on and on about RDJ being the savior of the Marvel universe.
Mhm.
Honestly, I think this might be what kickstarts it. If
Oh,
RDJ
good.
is going to be what comes in as the save, I think this is what kickstarted it. I cannot begin to tell you how much better this film was
Mhm.
than the last two Deadpool films, which I
Really?
liked.
Wow.
Yeah, but this one was like phenomenal. The pacing, the fact that it wasn't just kind of gutter humor, that they actually kind of wrote in some sophisticated humor into this.
Mhm.
It was heartfelt. It was a really good story. The villain was a like chef's kiss, perfect villain from comic adaptation to screen. They did a phenomenal job.
You
It
know the
had,
question I want you to answer.
yeah,
Was our boy Snipes present? Was that real?
that was real.
Fuck
That was
yeah.
absolutely, not only was that real, but the cameos
Yeah.
are abundant,
Nice.
abundant,
Nice.
and they're all perfectly fit into the storyline. And in such a way that the writing is just masterful.
Mhm.
I think that this, and they did a really good job of not only avoiding any preachy wokeness,
Mhm.
but actually kind of thumbing their nose at it a
Mhm.
little bit and just going, yeah, we get it, but
Right.
we're kind of in a slump right now and we need to make some money. So, and they like, you know, breaking the fourth wall, as Deadpool is known to do,
Yep.
basically saying that, hey, you joined it at a slump, you know, like we're trying to fix some things. And it was just a beautiful nod to what a superhero movie was supposed to be, but then taking it and then turning it up to 11. They did such a good job of all of the pacing of it, the emotion of it, the cameos. The fight scenes were incredible. I don't think I've seen a bloodier movie and was happy about it.
Nice.
You know, it was incredible, beginning to end. It had my wife cackling from Two Kids Away. Like I could hear her over people. Like
Yeah.
that. This isn't her jam. She normally falls asleep with this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And she was howling and I was howling. I was getting giddy at certain scenes that I recognized from comic books, certain poses, uh, the mask coming on, the Wolverine mask. Like I was going nuts, and it
Nice.
was beautiful. It was a really great movie. 9.5 megs. Like
Wow.
it was
All
that
right.
good. It was probably my favorite superhero movie of all time. Probably. We were trying to find our top 5 or even top 3, and it's
Mhm.
easily in my top 3, if not at the very tippy top. Like its rewatchability is
I feel like it'll be a close second to Paddington Bear for me, but after that,
yeah.
yeah.
I mean, it holds a special place in your heart. I get it, but yeah. But yeah, it was wonderful. Director Sean Levy just killed it. He killed it, and it took the Deadpool franchise and matured it. It turned it into an actual film rather than a shtick.
Did it leave the door
And
open for Deadpool to start appearing in MCU stuff?
yes, it did.
That's what I
And
figured
that's
they
the
were going to
thing.
do. Yeah.
Yeah, and they did it. They did it really well. And in fact, the whole premise of the story is based off of something you didn't even think about from the last Deadpool movie. And it brings in like the Loki universe stuff from the TV
That's
show
exactly
with
what I
the
thought they were going to do. Yep.
time cop stuff, right? So it makes it like they did such a masterful job of tying in all the different realms of bringing him into the MCU. And
It would have been sick
Phenomenal
if they
job.
got the real time cop to do a cameo and Van Damme shows up somewhere.
And Van Damme showed up. Yeah.
All
Yeah. I
bets
don't
are
think
off.
even Deadpool. Yeah. Deadpool wouldn't even,
Yeah, I don't
stood a chance.
I
for them.
own the first two movies and I was considering seeing the second one. I don't know how my pop would do with those movies, but now I'm curious.
Yeah.
I'm sure he'd laugh and then be like really cringe disgusted with it. But 9.5 megs, that is to date the highest meg count I think we've had on
Yeah.
a movie. So that's high praise.
And worth every meg and half meg, whatever that.
It's the front half of the meg too, with all the teeth. Imagine.
That should be a determining factor for halves.
Yeah,
It's like
totally. Is it the ass
like
end
even
of a
another-
meg, or is it leaning
Yeah.
toward the toothy kind, or the toothy
Right,
side? Yeah. Yeah.
So this is a toothy one.
All right.
So, but that being said, we're still in superheroes
Yeah.
because I pushed my way through, and it took a lot. And I just finished it last night, but I had to drudge my way through season 4 of The Boys. Now, The Boys is a show on Amazon Prime, and it is based off of the Garth Ennis comic book series from the early to mid 2000s. It started off with Wildstorm, and it kind of branched off into different publication houses. But The Boys was a satirical take on basically the Justice League.
Yep.
But if it was in real life, like what the egotistical, homicidal kind of nonsense would actually happen if people who were basically gods among men
Yeah.
lived among us, and then the corporate mega corporate icon that would conglomerate around them and create them marketable, make them marketable people.
Right.
And then a faction of like CIA operatives that have all been affected personally in one way or another by the carnage that these super beings have implemented into their lives, killing a loved one, whatever, and then getting away with it because they're basically celebrities or are more than they are celebrities. And it's just a very realistic take. However, they take the realism even in the comic books to the most graphic,
very
extremes.
over the
graphic
top is
extremes they can.
yeah.
Very much so. It is even, and the comic books were initially worse than what you saw on TV. Like the things that happened in the comic books were way kind of worse. But it was really good writing. It had a lot of shock value to it, and it was extremely popular. So when the TV show came out and they cast it perfectly, it was a perfect cast. And the first couple of seasons were phenomenal, even though it was still kind of that same shock factor. They did a really good job with it, and I was really impressed. And there was a couple of people that were on board, like Eric Kripke, who I am a fan of from the Supernatural series. I love that series. And he was the creator and showrunner for that. So he was at the helm, and it had a great cast like Carl Urban and Jack Quaid and Anthony Starr and all of these great actors that they kind of made an ensemble here. And it had some decent producers, even though, like, people who I thought at least knew the source material were nerds and understood it, like Seth Rogen. Well, come season 4, apparently a bug got put up their bonnet to veer very, very distinctly and aggressively against the narrative of the comic book, which was supposed to be somewhat political satire, but it was always fairly vague because it was written in the early to mid 2000s, so it didn't really have a political slant to it other than kind of generalities.
Right.
Well, they decided to put it all out there in season 4.
Yeah.
And it is far and away the wokest, most disgusting, obvious, overt, it's propaganda. They basically just said, we're doing a whole season of propaganda. And so and let's be real here. I want the fans to know that I am a fan of The Boys. Here is a copy of The Boys #1, like in pristine condition. This is where it all began. So I've been a fan of this series. I'm not a Johnny come lately. I didn't just show up because the show did. I've been a fan for a long time. This is not what The Boys was supposed to be.
That's like me explaining to casual joiners on the Fallout series when it hit fucking Prime or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, but you don't know. You just don't know what we went through as gamers for this goddamn franchise and what Bethesda put us through. Anyway, go on.
But yeah, it starts off this premise where one of the main characters from The Boys, which is what they call the kind of CIA group trying to take down all of these superheroes, the Frenchie, who's the demolitions expert and kind of just overall badass guy, they turned him gay. Now he's just humping dudes on screen, and for no reason either. Like, it literally had no impact on the story. They just needed to make him gay. And like, you follow the rest of the season, he ends up with the girl that he always wanted in seasons 1, 2, and 3 anyway. And so, like, what was the point of like having this gay tryst where he's like, oh, but I killed his parents, and oh, I'm wrestled inside about it. It had no impact on the story, and it created nothing for it. It was just literally to make another character gay. But it's the good guys. The good guys are the ones that are cool with being gay, right? So, but all of the bad guys, the Seven, which is basically the Justice League, are evil. They're all like Trump supporters, and they even reference in the last episode January 6th, and are like, and they've got this like Marjorie Taylor Greene person who has her own show that is like making fun of all of the right-wing talking points and all of the conservatives, and taking like, don't you know, it's like when they parody Alex Jones or something like that. But that's what the whole season was. That they didn't miss a beat. Every single episode had some type of dig or takedown, or the whole episode was just basically like, all conservatives are bad. This is what they do. This is what they act like. This is what they talk like. Yeah. And it was so on the nose. It was so heavy-handed. It was such like obvious propaganda. There was no subtlety to it. And it ruined the show. The show is like absolute garbage now. And I did not enjoy any of it. I tried to kind of weasel through it. I tried to go, okay, I can ignore that. I can ignore that.
Even if you put up intentional blinders and the story arc is still dog shit. Yeah. That says something. I mean,
it was a boring season. Nothing really happened other than they were going through a presidential election where the main president guy, who's the bigot, is also anti-soups, which the soups are the bad guys, right? But he's, maybe he wasn't the bigot, but you don't know. Like, you're
either way, he's like, not being inclusive, and that's bad,
right? Yeah, and even though the soups are the bad guys, right? So like, it doesn't. And then the VP is a girl who's hiding her superpowers, and she's got some pretty crazy ones. But there's a secret cabal. It's kind of letting you know that there's a secret society that actually runs the government. Like, they turned Batman into the Batman character. They turn him into this like sadomasochist, like has a sex dungeon, all this crazy. Like, it's just, there's no
beat arc they didn't hit.
Right. That's and then great. Also on top of that, there was this idea that they could come across, and it came late, like real late in the series. It's like an afterthought. Yeah. But that there was a serum, a virus that they could spread that would kill all of the soups, which would also include like a little kid that they like, and two of their members for the team. and the moral quandary of should we actually do it, but they never actually wrestled with it. It just kind of disappeared, and then they never got to use it. And like, so there was no connectivity throughout the 8 or 9 episodes or whatever. There was just nothing to really draw you through. It was
So they
literally
put that
just like,
serum back in the box in Wuhan.
yeah, basically, yeah.
Got it.
So,
But at
but
least
yeah,
they hit
it
those
was,
beats, man.
yeah, and that's all it was a series of propaganda beats. It literally
Ugh.
had no context to the entire. So they took a show that, although vulgar and although over the top, uh, was an enjoyable storyline,
Mhm.
bringing characters in, and for 3 seasons, which I would have given probably, I don't know, the first 3 seasons I give, just for context, I'll give it like a flat 7
Yeah.
mags on. Like, superhero stuff gets me, and kind of offbeat stuff gets me, so I'll give it 7 there. This season, like, I'm gonna, just to be generous, 2.5 megs, and that's the ass end of that meg.
Yikes.
So yeah, I mean, it was that bad. I struggled to get through to make sure I could do a review on it, and I wanted to like it. But even like some of the characters, like Erin Moriarty, she was in the news a bunch for getting a bunch of like plastic surgery to her face this season. And what's funny is her character in the show was the one that was pushing up against all that corporate stuff and not wanting to change herself for the image that they were trying to make her in, only to ironically have the actress actually do that for the show
in real life.
And so, like, in real life.
Yeah.
And so it's a hot mess. Like, they killed off Huey's dad, who was actually played by oh man, what's his name? The Shaun of the Dead.
Damn it.
Yeah. I'm blanking on his name, but you know who I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So the guy who played Shaun of the Dead. But yeah, they killed him off too, and I'm like, he was the heart. Like, he wasn't around a lot, but at least he was the heart of Huey, one of the main characters. He was his dad, and they killed him off. And now what? Now he's just untethered. Simon Pegg, thank you. But now he's untethered. Now he has no tether to reality or morality or structure. He's just now going to be like a loop. Like, you don't care anymore about Huey's character because his dad was his anchor. His dad was the one who brought him back to reality. And now,
I mean, kudos for getting through it, I guess. Like, I couldn't even get there past episode 3 of The Acolyte. I did not go back.
Yeah.
I was like, this is abhorrent. Like, and if I were a Die Hard fan, which is why I revisited it to defend the Die Hards even harder, I'm sure I would be brought to tears with what I saw. It was that bad. So it's unfortunate. Yeah. I don't know, man.
But yeah, that's what I've got for those.
Well, Deadpool
was great.
I love it, and I'm probably gonna go see it now instead of wait for it.
Yeah, I highly recommend it. Like, you'll enjoy every minute of it. Nice. Stay for the credit scenes. End credit scenes, everybody, stay for them, because if you have dry eyes after it, I will be amazed. So
fair enough.
Yeah.
Let's say we turn to the gospel by Gen Z.
After wash my brain of The Boys, please.
Chapter 18, friends. This is called A Rich Young Man. Rich young bro went up to Jesus saying, "Teacher, what must I do to become divinely based?" Jesus said, "Let the divine dad lore live rent free in your life." When he asked which mod rules to follow, Sacred Blood said, X on unalive, X on having side chicks, X securing others' bags, and X on cap. Green check mark to give dubs to your green check mark to give your father and mother. Give dubs to your father and mother. Green check mark, be a real one to all. So those are the don'ts and the do's. Blood said, I already crush it with WVs. How am I caught lacking? Jesus said, if you want to become more valid, start giving broke boy and let the poor live their best life. Him, cries in rich kid. Not going to lie, you playing too much. So he took the L and left, for he would rather gatekeep all his bread. Holy Bro said, see how hard is it to pass the vibe check when you're trying to live your own best life? And the disciples were shooketh and said, bruh, then who can pass God's vibe check? Holy Bro said, of yourselves, you can only take L's, but the CEO of W's will help you carry every dub from here on.
Amen.
Yeah, that's fucking great.
He's right. The CEO of W's.
CEO of Dubs. What a show.
Yeah.
We packed a lot of content into 2 hours, man.
Yeah, we
There's
did.
a lot going on.
Has it been 2 hours?
Yeah, 154 and 25. So we're there, man.
Oh, dang.
Jeez.
Wow.
So
we cruised through it too. There was a lot, but
there was a ton. And I appreciate you guys sticking with the stream, even though it's been up and down. Again, network issues, as it were. But I'm seeing activity on our socials. We're starting to pick up some steam there, which is good news. So you can reach out to us and, catch up with us.
They're all active now too. So throw us follows, throw us likes.
Yeah.
On
throw
Twitter,
us what's up in your hood. We'll talk about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Give us topics to talk about. Like, the Twitter is up, the Instagram is up. Although we have to post pictures on Instagram, so I'll figure out what to do there.
Intermittent screenshots of us being like, we'll figure it out.
So Twitter and Facebook, you can hit us up on either one of those. Instagram is there, but we haven't really put up any content there yet. So, but yeah, go ahead and hit us up and send us comments and suggestions if you've got topics that you want us to talk about. Like, I was thinking about a topic today that I think is going to require another Pastor Jason visit.
Yeah. And
I was driving to work and I was like, is there a difference between denying Christ and or accepting that Christ exists, but denying, like, had it lined up in my brain when I was driving, and pushing him away. So like just denying that he exists,
denying that he even exists, or denying the divinity part and accepting that he exists.
Yeah, and accepting that he does, but rejecting it. So much like a modern day Satanist who actually believes in not just the humanistic version of it, but but somebody who actually believes within the context of the Christian faith, but rejects it and says, no, I don't want that. I'm going with the other guy. Is there a difference between denying him, just like saying, I don't believe he exists, and also, or somebody who believes he exists, but just rejects him outright? So, and I want to kind of pick his brain to see what the difference is there. So, on a theological level, that's may not come up for another 10 episodes, but it was just something I was thinking.
Don't cancel your New Year's plans yet. Yeah
But I was thinking about that.
Well, sick friends.
Yeah, cool. I think that's it.
I think I gotta go check in on the Pops and see what he's up to, so we'll call it here.
Tell him I said hi. Give him a hug for me.
I absolutely will. You guys have an awesome evening or morning or whenever you're listening to this. Thanks for stopping by the live stream if you're here. I see you guys lurking in there. I appreciate you. And we will see you sometime very, very soon. Later.